The life and sad ending of Bill Kenny. Bill Kenny was born William Francis Kenny Jr. in 1914 at Mercy Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Although Kenny was born in Philadelphia, he spent much of his young life in Baltimore, Maryland, with his twin brother Herb Kenny, who later on would also become a member of the Ink Spots. The boy's father, William Francis Kenny Sr., died of influenza in 1919 when the boys were 5 years old. That same year, their widowed mother, Jenny Kenny, moved the boys to Washington, D.C. and then to Baltimore, where the family attended St. Peter Claver Church and lived at 1151 Carey Street. Mrs. Kenny worked as a dressmaker and made drapery for department stores to support the boys. It was in the 3rd grade that young Bill walked out on stage at his school, St. Peter's Parochial, to sing his first song in public. It was the Japanese Sandman. Kenny demonstrated early on his high tenor singing abilities, singing C over high C and participating in various school operettas at Booker T. Washington Junior High School and later at Douglas High School, where he graduated. Here is an excerpt from a 1944 interview with the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper, where Kenny recalls singing as a young boy. It was in high school that Kenny began to focus on singing more than before and often appeared singing solo in his school assemblies. After graduation, Kenny attended an art school in Washington, D.C., but would on occasion appear as a soloist in amateur contests in theaters throughout the Baltimore-Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. While Kenny was on vacation in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the young singer competed in 22 amateur nightclub contests, winning 21 of them. Bill Kenny's first professional booking was in Atlantic City, New Jersey, at the Ritz-Carlton Gardens. After Milton Berle's brother, Phil Berle, heard Kenny singing ballads, he signed him to a contract. Because jobs were too difficult to get in New York City, Berle decided to release Kenny from the contract after a short time. It was around this time that Kenny sang Trees in an amateur contest at the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem, and won first place, and a position singing with a group known as the Ink Spots. Before the R&B era, before the Ravens, Orioles, and Clovers, young black males who wanted to sing wanted to be just like Bill Kenny and the Ink Spots. The group had the sound and they had the look. During the 1950s, Harold Winley sang bass for the Clovers and remembered the impact of the Ink Spots. But during that time he said, "You know, the groups that you would hear around on the corner singing were mostly singing Ink Spots. You hear cats going down the street. You know guys that had tenor voices, man, in the morning, at night, singing Bill Kenny and doing the hands, like he used to do. It was either Bill Kenny or Billy Eckstein. Understand what I am saying? Those were the voices you would hear." Some of Kenny's favorite vocalists over the years included Ella Fitzgerald, Vic Damone, Lena Horne, Paul Robeson, John Gary, Roland Hayes, and Nat King Cole. In 1936, the Ink Spots' first tenor Jerry Daniels left the group and was replaced by Bill Kenny. Bill Kenny made his first recordings with the Ink Spots' It Ain't Nobody's Business What I Do and the swing tune Your Feet's Too Big on May 12 of that year. Kenny had a brief solo on Your Feet's Too Big. Kenny's first known solo feature came in February 1938 on a radio broadcast for radio station WEAF. The song was Tune In on My Heart from the 1929 Broadway musical Remote Control. Lyrics and music by Buddy Valentine and Gene Johnston. Kenny's first recorded solo feature to be recorded in a studio came in 1938 for Decca Records on the ballad I Wish You the Best of Everything. In 1939, the Ink Spots were scheduled for a recording session at Decca Recording Studio in NYC. Songwriter Jack Lawrence brought with him his latest composition If I Didn't Care for the Ink Spots to record. Bill Kenny was featured throughout except for the middle talking bass part done by Orville Hoppy Jones. Each member was paid only $37.50 for the recording. However, Once the record sold 200,000, Decca destroyed the original contract and the Ink Spots were paid an additional $3,750. The record went on to sell more than 19 million copies and was Bill Kenny's first top hit feature. The year 1939 was the start of a new format for the Ink Spots that would feature Charlie Fuqua's trademark guitar intro, Bill Kenny's tenor lead, and Hoppy Jones' talking bass. Other Bill Kenny features such as Address Unknown, My Prayer, Memories of You, I Am Gettin' Sentimental Over You, and Bless You all reached the top of the U.S. pop charts in 1939. It was around this time that the Ink Spots signed an additional 5-year recording contract with Decca. From 1940 to 1949, Bill Kenny was featured lead singer on 40 of 45 Ink Spots recordings that reached the top of the U.S. pop charts. During the 1940s, Kenny was featured in 2 major motion pictures, The Great American Broadcast and the Abbott and Costello film Pardon My Sarong. In 1944, Ella Fitzgerald joined the Ink Spots at Decca Studios, where she and Kenny were to be featured on a song entitled Into Each Life, Some Rain Must Fall. That song reached top 1 on the U.S. pop charts and top 1 on the R&B charts. The flip side of that recording, I Am Making Believe, reached top 1 on the U.S. pop charts and top 2 on the R&B charts. In February 1945, Fitzgerald teamed up with the Ink Spots and was featured again with Kenny on a recording of I Am Beginning to See the Light and That's the Way It Is. I Am Beginning to See the Light reached the top 5 on the U.S. pop charts. That same year, Ink Spots manager Mo Gale began trying to advertise the quartet as the Ink Spots due to Kenny's increasing leadership role. In 1950, Kenny's solo recording of If reached the top 23 on the U.S. pop charts, but his solo recordings from 1949 were labeled the Ink Spots. In 1951, Bill Kenny recorded 2 more solo recordings, I Am Lucky I Have You and I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance with You, which featured cornetist Bobby Hackett. These were also solo recordings labeled as the Ink Spots. This happened once more in October 1951 with Bill Kenny's solo recordings and Then I Prayed and Honest and Truly, on which he performs the talking bass part made famous by Orville Hoppy Jones. In 1951, Kenny released his first album Precious Memories on the Decca label under the Faith series and recorded 4 songs also on the Faith series that were not included in the Precious Memories album. Kenny's recorded version of the gospel composition It Is No Secret from the album Precious Memories reached number 18 on the U.S. pop charts in 1951. In 1960, Kenny released his second album Mr. Inkspot on the Warwick label. This album contained songs previously made famous by Bill Kenny and the Ink Spots, as well as some standards such as I Don't Know Why, It Might As Well Be Spring, and You'll Never Know. This album featured such hits as If I Didn't Care, I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire, I'll Get By, and Do I Worry? In 1966, Kenny recorded an album for Dot Records entitled Remember Me. The album contained songs featured on his CBC television program The Bill Kenny Show, including Me and My Shadow, Danny Boy, You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, and I'll Be Seeing You. In 1973, Kenny released his first album in 7 years, With Love, for RCA Victor. This album featured songs composed by such songwriters as Irving Berlin, Lennon McCartney, Chris Christopherson, and George and Ira Gershwin. Throughout his life, Kenny wrote and co-wrote many songs, including There Is No God But God, When the Chimes Ring, I Counted on You, You Are Happiness, A Soldier's Rosary, I Am Heading Back to Paradise, The Sweetest Dream, Rose of Roses, Don't Put It Off Till Sunday, Do You Feel That Way Too? Sorry You Said Goodbye, My Lonesome Years, Mavita, and many more. Kenny's composition I Can't Stand Losing You, which was written by Kenny in the early 1930s when he was in high school, was recorded by the Ink Spots for Decca Records in 1940. Although it was recorded in 1940, Decca decided to wait to release it until March 1943. Soon after its release, the song became a top 1 hit on the R&B charts and was listed there for 7 weeks. Kenny was married 3 times. His first marriage was to Zena Boyd in 1937. His second marriage came in 1947 to Marguerite Wendell, a model from Chicago introduced to Kenny by heavyweight champion boxer Joe Louis. Kenny first met McBurney after an Ink Spots performance in Vancouver at the Cave Supper Club where she was a member of the audience. Later on, Audrey became Bill's business manager. On July 4, 1969, Kenny was severely burnt when the gas tank of his sports car exploded in an underground parking garage in Vancouver as he lit a cigar while starting the vehicle. Third-degree burns to his face and hands contributed to later respiratory problems, stemming from the fumes he inhaled. Kenny and McBurney remained married until Kenny's death in 1978. Although he never had any children of his own, Kenny became the acting father of McBurney's daughter, Dixie Lee, from her marriage to Roy Buchanan. Kenny died from a respiratory illness on March 23, 1978. In New Westminster, Canada. His funeral service was held at the Unitarian Church of Vancouver.